We are back and ready to kick off our first match of the day, and it is going to be OldBoy versus Alutemu quarterfinal #1, Lorinda. And I'm just excited to kick this off because, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, this is probably for me the best top 8 of any major tournament we've ever seen. So I can't wait to get started.
Alutemu for me is one of those players who we have one every year, the best player not to have been to Worlds. Like Hunter Ace was one in his day. Osaka was one for a while. Even Fireback back in those. Oh, this guy's good. He should make Worlds. Alutemu for me is that player if you don't count Dead Draw, because Dead Draw's 2 steps away. Alutemu is the Grandmaster already, so he's 1 step away. And I feel that he's a player that is this close to being a World Championship contender, genuine, real live contender that we've got, and winning this would be a second prize behind being world champion, but he came really close in the APAC playoffs. Would be great to see. And OldBoy, he represented Ukraine some time ago for Global Games, had a pretty reasonable turnout every time he played in HCT, but never really won anything big, I don't feel.
Yeah, didn't really, do the big finish that some of these players need to really put their name on the board, and potentially at that point of maybe worked his way towards making it into Grandmasters. Now he's going to do it the old-fashioned way if he wants to get in there. But both these players bring in some pretty cool lineups. I would say, for me, however much I like Alutemu, I think OldBoy has the lineup for this tournament, which is the Warrior, Hunter, Rogue, Warlock. I think that's just the best 4 decks. Derek and myself were talking about this a little bit yesterday, but Alutemu not bringing Warrior and bringing Demon Hunter in his lineup, something's going right. And I know the build that he's chosen to bring has been gaining a lot of praise with those Cobalt Spellkins, along with the I forgot the name of the card now. I am just going to double check. The history buff. That's it. I knew the card, just couldn't remember the name typically. But yeah, I've been playing a little bit of that Demon Hunter as well, because I am, I think, joining you on this belief that Demon Hunter is by no means just long gone, just because it's had another wave of nerfs. I do think it's a pretty solid build, but I'm excited to see some more of the evolution of that. But overall, I think this might be a tough one for Alutemu. He's probably going to be forced to ban this Warrior, which means he has the Warlock, Hunter, Rogue. But where do you think the ban is going to lie from OldBoy here? What does OldBoy want to get rid of from Alutemu's lineup?
It's interesting. It's like the Warrior and the Demon Hunter pretty much replace each other these days. It used to be that you had to bring both decks and then you had 2 slots, but I would go with possibly banning the Demon Hunter. But you know that I like this deck more than most people, so I just see Demon Hunter and I just want to ban it before I look at the rest of the lineup. But realistically, it beats the Hunter. It's got a very good chance against the Warlock. It's got a very good chance against the Rogue. I just don't want it hanging in there. I just want to get rid of it.
Right, and honestly, with Hunter, I believe, and Rogue have been pretty good in their performance so far. I wonder if we're ever going to see just a Rogue ban, because there's always those points in tournaments where, of course, the win rates of classes are affected by how many of the other classes are banned. So if everyone's banning Warrior, then, there's got to be another deck that's doing well, right? But there is always a point where if one deck is doing that well and you aren't banning it after 2 days worth of play, you maybe have to go back to the drawing board, right? And say, well, hang on, if Rogue is just suspiciously good and winning all the games, should that just take the ban instead? Or you have to maybe rein it in and say, no, my ban, the plan for the lineup has worked out so far. I'm just going to stick with it.
I think the key there is what you said was for after 2 days, overnight, or when these players slept, they would have had their friends and teammates, playing out these matchups for them, and you get a really good chance between days 2 and 3 for either yourself or your friends to work out, am I doing this right? Levick played the exact same 120 as OldBoy and managed, I think he got 7 wins. He was definitely up there towards the end. Alutemu is obviously going to have a great support system, so maybe some weird bans will come out of having play tested this all night, even though the players themselves will have been asleep.
Yeah, we can see the lineup there overall. It looks like the Warrior is gone for OldBoy, which, again, just doesn't really surprise me. I will say, though, just as we touched on Rogue a little bit earlier on, it has been performing, and you mentioned the Galakron nerf, although impactful, hasn't destroyed the deck. And I think that key card in the middle there is a big reason why. With the consensus that Quest Adventurer is just good in the deck now. So suddenly you have the 2 Questions and Edwin that can get some pretty heavy lifting doing in the early game. I think the power of Rogue does lie in that early to mid game right now, and not so much in the value plan later with Galakrond. I think that that's more of a thing Rogue can do, but not necessarily what Rogue wants to do every game to win.
Yeah, that's the headline nonsense, the thing that the newer players to Hearthstone go, wow, look at this, he's got a questing and all these naught mana things that Galakrond got. But actually, yeah, that's fantastic, that looks great, it's a show-off thing to do, but you don't need all that for the questing to just be mighty powerful. There's 5 0-cost spells there, as you can see.
Yeah, and obviously there's always the Van Cleave plays, but interestingly enough, there's even that prep inclusion, which I'm personally still 50-50 on whether I like the fact that there's just the 1 prep in there and only 1 Spy Mistress, for example, which I don't know, I'm a huge fan of Spy Mistress. Over the past couple of months we've seen it played a lot in Grandmasters, but overall I think this is just a very solid list if you want to get started playing Rogue, and we'll no doubt over the course of today and over the course of this past weekend just see how good this deck is, because I think it is one of those decks in this tournament you can just rely on to get a win. We've seen it time and time again.
Yeah, it hurts me to say it. I've never been a fan of Rogue, but there's something you can count on every time there's a new meta, and that is that Rogue will be good at the start of that new meta, and that's what this is. There's been enough nerfs that kind of everything's slowed down a bit, including the Rogue, but when you don't know what to do, play Rogue or Zoo.
Right, exactly. And just a reminder, if you are just joining us and missed the build-up to the beginning of match number 1, we do have OldBoy and Alutemu coming right up for you. And then we're going to have Lee versus Tice, Bunny Hopper versus X-Hope, and Lita versus Saiyan for the rest of the day for the quarterfinals. And of course, we're going to be playing it through to end on who is going to be crowned the winner of Masters Tour Asia Pacific. So a day full of Hearthstone. We are done with the Swiss rounds. It's single elimination now, Lorinda. And how do you think the players feel on this? Because on one hand, you don't get any second chances like you kind of do during a Swiss tournament, right? You can take a loss. So it's a little bit more dangerous now, single elimination. But the players are in the top 8. So do you think they're just going to be happy with the top 8 finish? Or do you think there's anyone specific that's really saying, I need this win?
I think Lita and OldBoy will never have a better opportunity to just pull out a huge amount of prize money towards qualifying for Grandmasters compared to the rest of the field. There are 6 players who it doesn't matter to in terms of Grandmaster standings and requalification and stuff. They're Grandmasters or in their respective leagues already, but OldBoy and Letta are looking for that big win, that first place, because nobody else is going to get any money at all. Right, they're going to get 3,000 and nice money like that, but yeah, in the scheme of things, it's not close. It's 10 times as much. So those 2 players in particular will be terrified. I think Alutemu will be a little bit nervous because he's not had that big win that we all know is coming. And I think the other 4 are just going to take it in their stride.
And I am going to put you on the spot here, Lorinda, while we've got some time. The players are just getting ready. We're making sure they're all good to get into the game. We don't want any hassle mid-game. But I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's your pick for this? I know you keep such a great track of all the players, of how they've been performing recently and so on. But who are you putting, whose name are you picking out the hat here for taking the victory?
I think, Italy, that just Saiyan's going to take this down. He's most dangerous when he goes a bit quiet and you don't hear about him for a little while and the spotlight's off. That's when he starts thinking, oh, I'd like the spotlight back, please. I think Saiyan will come through this one way or another and take it down.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be so... I can't even explain how hyped I am to not only, obviously, luckily be able to cast some of this, but to just watch this play out. It's going to be so good. We do see Alutemu's line up there, and it does look like you were right, Lorinda, that the Demon Hunter is kind of the warrior in this lineup, and it has received the ban there from OldBoy, so it is just going to be Rogue Warlock Hunter versus Rogue Warlock Hunter. So again, removing those 2 extra classes, you're looking at a lot of these players are doing something right and have similarities in their lineups with this Warlock Rogue Hunter style. And I think it's just the way forward. The only surprise is that Alutemu's made it with Demon Hunter and not Warrior as his 4th deck.
Yeah, I do think that overall in the top 8 that there is less aggro in general than I expected. I thought because of how Hunter was doing. And Demon Hunter does do pretty well against it still, but some of the crazy aggro decks like Paladin and Shaman actually do really well against Highlander Hunter as well. I know nothing does well against Highlander Hunter in your eyes, but we saw on day one, I think Suni had this super aggressive lineup.
Right.
And I thought one or two of those might get through just by destroying Hunter all day, but seems that outside of X-Hope that nobody really has managed that. So
yeah,
we are down to this sort of scissors, paper, stone setup at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the players are just getting ready. I can even hear it. They're getting ready to go in. So I promise we will not be long to get going on the first match. But I do agree, and I think one of the issues is with the nerfs being so close to the start of the tournament, only a few days to prep. Aggro wasn't that great before the nerfs, and I think with some changes, it's difficult to just make that snap judgment of, okay, these nerfs are enough. Because look how wrong we were about Rogue, right? I think generally a lot of the player base thought Rogue was going to be so much worse because of the Galakron nerf, and we were just wrong. It seems to be performing, at least just in this weekend sample size, very, very well indeed. So we do see that it looks like OldBoy is going to kick it off with his Highlander Hunter for game number 1. And honestly, this looks like an extremely standard list. The only thing to really point out here, Lorinda, or the main difference we've been seeing across the weekend, is whether players have cut Dragon Queen Alexstrasza or not. And it looks like OldBoy is sticking with Dragon Queen for now at least.
Yeah, we have seen some of the players who didn't cut it, didn't play in the Grand Slam, but OldBoy's going for the full power level, which I agree with as well. You've talked me into this over time, that you don't have many really powerful cards in Hunter. It's a lot lower curve than you kind of imagine when you think about the deck. And I think having a few big heavy hitters is good for you, because you've pointed out to me a few times, you sometimes lose by not picking one up.
Right, exactly. Yeah, sometimes you just need that one of them to get the job done. But I will point out as well, maybe I was wrong to say there wasn't any big differences. Frizz Kindle Roost in there is going to help out with a potential unnerf of Dragon Queen Alexstrasza if it's in the deck when it's played, but also just to help beef out that curve a little bit. Meanwhile, Alutemu looks like he's going to be locking in his Quest Warlock, and honestly, this is going to be a tough opening game for Alutemu. I still am of the belief that Hunter does very well versus Quest Warlock. I know a few of the Quest Warlock aficionados think that it can be anything. I will say though, Kartuk defenders may make the difference in this one.
I think Quest Warlock is the new Leroy Rogue. The people who play it just tell you it never loses to anything. Back in the old Rogue days with Leroy, people who played that deck used to tell you it doesn't lose to anything, right, even if it was obviously not favoured. We see Quest Warlock players are becoming slightly attached to this deck, I think. They just doesn't lose to anything, apparently.
Yeah, and the big question really is those Abyssal Summoners versus Kartuk Defenders. I know Sottle despises Kartuk. Should have seen the Discord chat yesterday. I think some of us were casting a game talking about Kartuk. It's just in Discord. It's bad. It's bad. It's not even a discussion. But I think I did at least half persuade him that in certain matchups, it can do a very specific job. And I think it was this matchup we were talking about. Hunter normally wants to just pile on just fairly consistent damage, almost from turn 1 onwards, and then start having those big power plays in the late game to end it. And a Kartuk, although can easily be busted through by Hunter, the heal for 6 and then the sort of heal of having to kill a taunt minion twice, which means there's less damage going face, can often just be an extra mini reset to the health of the Warlock, which means that Hunter then has to start pulling something a little bit more impressive out the bag to win the game. But Lorinda, finally, we are ready. OldBoy on the top on his Highlander Hunter, Alutemu on the bottom on the Quest Warlock. It's the first quarterfinal of the day, and we are good to go.
Finally getting it in there, and OldBoy will have waited a long time to look at this hand, and he'll be very, very pleased. He's queued a matchup he wants, and he's got a hand that he won't mind in the slightest.
Yeah, these Hunter mulligans, I know everyone thinks Hunter's very straightforward, and I understand why, but the mulligans do interest me a lot. I love what kind of seeing how far the players want to push it, how okay are they with certain openers. Like, do you want to keep a 3-drop when you could throw it away for a 2-drop? If you don't have one, we do see the Scale Rider going away there from OldBoy, and he is rewarded with a Blazing Battle Mage to be played first, which is correct. Normally, in certain matchups, you want that Sharpshooter down first, as the flexibility of the hero power is going to be powerful. Warlock, definitely not one of those.
Alutemu has got the hand, though, that will help him combat this fairly quick start. Dark Sky is one of the key cards, but also just having other removal, and now he's got into the plot twist as well. He's kind of got everything he wants to get set up nicely, so gonna need to because of this Zigzor, though, however.
Yeah, this Dark Skies, though, is pretty good. Gonna help clean this up.
Yeah, it's so incredible. Having played a lot of Demon Hunter against this Warlock, and you're constantly going, okay, I just got to buff this and that, and I'm out of range of Dark Skies. And then they go Dark Skies, Coin, Mortal Coil, and you lose anyway. But getting out of range of Dark Skies with any deck is so difficult. Look at this, it's a 4-6 and a 2-2 already on the board, and they don't survive.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy overall, isn't it? That just that one Dark Skies was enough to clean this up, and now OldBoy is kind of reset. He's just got Dwarven Sharpshooter Hero Power, which again is just little bits of consistent damage, but already even his next turn, if it is that big old whelp, is relatively slow.
Slow, but plenty of follow-up behind it. I do feel that Alutemu will be very happy with this, but the nature of Warlock is you keep taking damage, the nature of Hunter is you keep dealing damage, so he's going to have to play very precisely, even with this decent-looking start.
I do wonder if just tap plot twist is going to be worthwhile here for Alutemu. I think a lot of the time with this Warlock deck, maybe newer players might get trapped in the idea of, oh, I'm against Hunter, I need to not life tap as often because I need to preserve my health, I need to keep my removal, there's a Kartut in hand, that's good versus Hunter. But actually, Plot Twist often gains you health anyway, and also, he didn't have a Nether Breath even though he had a Moag. He didn't really have any of the progression tools, and now you can see the reward. Not only does he have Nether Breath Moag, he has the Questing Explorer, and another Plot Twist to get this quest active very early indeed.
Yeah, you win a lot of these games when you do win with 1 or 2 health left for several turns. Obviously not against Hunter, but you have to get it back or you get shot. But you go very, very low on health, and you've got to not try and save that health by not tapping. You have to save that health by getting rid of your opponent's minions and getting your quest complete so you can kill your opponent. And it's a very false economy not to take that damage, as you were pointing out.
What do you think Alutemu is looking for here? Do you think he's forced into some kind of hard removal play with that Nether Breath, or do you think he's going to be even greedier and go for the quest activation?
It's so tempting to activate the quest, but when you start adding it up, so you go Plot Twist and tap into a 0 card. Let's say you gain 4 health to go to 23. You're taking 6, 8, at least 8 next turn. It's pretty low. I feel that he probably can't do it much as he would want to.
It's a tough line, isn't it? Because the reward is great. You get the quest active, and you can maybe that quest hero power is huge, but then maybe it's not. And as you said, you are pushed too low. And we see Alutemu does go for that Moag Nether Breath just to be a little bit safer. He can activate his quest next turn. And also, one positive is that Netherwing is going to be able to clean up this Sharpshooter and maybe help with some extra removal with the help of that Coil.
He's going to need to, though. Look at this next few turns. OldBoy can do what he likes and it not be too bad for about 3 turns in a row here. He's got such a wealth of options.
There's some good options, you are right. I think I just like the Varanus, though. I think I'm with OldBoy on this. There aren't that many great Varanus turns built in against Warlock, honestly. And just playing a 7-6 on curve is powerful. The Dragonbane still going to get value pretty much any turn it's played going forward now. Rot Nest is going to be more valuable next turn, potentially, to stop a taunt on 6. So yeah, I like this a lot from OldBoy. He has a lot of flexibility going forward. And now it's on Alutemu once again, back up to full, but still just has to navigate this hand to get the most out of it, because he's facing down even more damage once again, Lorinda.
Yeah, I feel that this time, though, maybe he can suck it up for 1 turn and get that Plot Twist played. He's just wondering whether to questing first, I think. Because even, let's say a bad turn next turn, he takes, just put a number on it, like 12 damage. 8 plus some. That's still fine. You're on 18, you've got your Plot Twist done, you're starting to draw your 0-cost cards. And I think that is the best it's going to be. When's your better chance to play this Plot Twist? Even though it's not fun and you're going to take a bit of it.
Almost out of time.
I think it's worth it. His hand isn't mind-blowing, is it? If his hand was better, we could talk a bit more. But I think his hand didn't really achieve too much there, so I do like this. And again, he's sitting on a reasonable amount of health. The quest is now live, and most importantly, he isn't really dead next turn, so he can start recovering with these hero powers afterwards.
Yeah, one of the downsides, but it's not really a downside, it just feels like it. That's a good pickup. Is you don't get any health gain from the Brood Mothers the way he played it there. But unlucky, you've got to just pick your moment where you can get that second twist in.
My only worry with that turn was how late that tap was after the twist. Because it probably wouldn't have been, but it could have been a card he wanted to play, and it didn't look like he had the time to actually play it if it was. Obviously, Malygos, fantastic pickup. There's probably just not a better live tap target than that in the whole deck, so it's fine. But there's just been a note, especially some of the players in Asia Pacific over the course of a few seasons of Grandmasters, and just in general honesty, have been a little bit loose with the rope, in my opinion, and missing some plays, or at least not having the best turns because they've been rushing because of the rope. So I just want to make sure Alutemu tightens up on that just a little bit.
Yeah, I think Alutemu, for me, is one of the better time managers, but we have seen it. We have seen it a lot. Definitely more often than we'd like, where if you miss that tap, you are in a lot of trouble if you don't get it right. But I think he's okay. He just looks so much calmer these days than he did 2 years ago. He used to look like every turn was sort of life or death or something.
Right.
And now he just concentrates.
Tell you, even from when I was casting Asia Pacific Grandmasters to obviously this past season I've been watching Asia Pacific Grandmasters, he actually just keeps getting better as well, which is scary for everyone else, isn't it? Because he was already good. And now we're going to see the Caladan come down, take down the Tiamat, no problem. And the early Malygos just to play the Soulfire. And Alutemu is going to be very, very defensive here with this Malygos. What do you think of this, Lorinda? Is this too worrying to say, well, if Malygos dies, how does he win?
So, the way he's done it, Malygos shouldn't die very often. He's seen Varanus already, which gave him the license to do this. Obviously, there is the Rotnest there. It might hit. That's how the world works sometimes. But if it stays there, he just beats him down. And it's not the end of the world if you cannot combo kill your opponent. Against Hunter, you're constantly using your removal spells to stay alive, just to stop the Hunter from killing you with all its massive minions. So maybe it's going to be more a case of just waiting for Dragon Queen Alexstrasza anyway a lot of the time.
This is Rotnest 50-50 every day of the week, and he gets it. Huge outcome there for OldBoy. That has really put the brakes on what Alutemu can do. And Alutemu's not just... Alutemu's not just lost the game because of this. He, as you quite rightly pointed out, in this matchup, the Warlock does not need Malygos to win in any respect, but it has dramatically reduced the ability, right? Like, if that didn't hit Malygos, Alutemu could Mortal Coil the Rotnest away. You know what I mean? Like, the options he would have had would have been absolutely insane. The life tap into the Alexstrasza, a part of me, actually, Lorinda, would have liked to have seen the Alexstrasza that turn.
I understand the sentiment. I just wonder if he's got enough to actually win the game with just an 8-8. Maybe he has. But there's very little other damage left unless he picks up the other Alexstrasza. For
me, you just saw the Desperation Rotnest. Yeah, Tiamat's gone, so Rush Wind Fury or anything like that, Rush Divine Shield, gone. And you have a backup of these protecting these minions with Kartuk into Kartuk. To me, I think that was a missed opportunity from Alutemu.
Okay, you've sold that. I'm in the unfortunate position of having to say I think you're right. I'm learning from Sottle, you see, but I'm not as good at it as Sottle yet.
One thing I will say is because we can't see Deck Tracker, if Alutemu is literally one card away from activating his Alexstrasza, then maybe he thinks he's going to get there quickly, and then he can get a full-powered Alexstrasza out. And imagine 8-8 being on the board, Lorinda, right now. That's all I'm thinking.
The fact you can defend it is what sold me. The fact he had the two Kartuks, when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can buy into this, because if it's not removed immediately, it's not getting removed.
Right, it would literally... So, let's be honest, right? If Alexstrasza was played, then it would literally have to be Zephrys to deal with it, and then you just carry on the game and the Hunter now doesn't have Zephyrus either. So I don't know. I feel like that would have been a win-win situation for Alutemu, but he has chosen not to go with it, and now he has to navigate taking down this Dragonbane, another card that is a must-kill target in this matchup, and in most matchups, honestly. But gets away with it with this Soulfire Mortal Coil. Just throw one card up, but I think as long as he kept hold of that Alexstrasza, he was going to be happy.
Yeah, it's just the problem against Hunter is getting through when the Hunter's got this much mana.
Ooh.
Is that good or bad that he has this choice? Like he's losing some of those cards forever.
I think he goes for the Alexstrasza, although we've seen the other Kartuk get discarded, I guess. Yeah, I think because of the Kartuk, it's an Alexstrasza play. Because this is just more general power that you can start, throwing down turn after turn. Because outside of Alexstrasza, if he just played Brand this turn, it would have been quite bad. Which means his turn would have been like a Bone Wraith and Fairy Dragon against a Kartuk defender, which also seems quite bad.
How much stuff's Alutemu going to make now, though, Raven? He drew both Highlander cards in a row there. And he can just do what he likes this turn. It's gone nutty.
Alutemu is the best post-quest Warlock life tapper I've ever seen. He got Malygos, Alexstrasza, and Zephyrus. Is that not insane?
Who needs his first Malygos when you've got a second Malygos? He might not even need to take it because Twin Tyrant's pretty good here. I think he'll be tempted into taking it though.
What's he even got left though? He's only really got Rain of Fire, right?
Yeah. And Zephyrus, which with Malygos is pretty good. Twin Tyrant's probably the pick, depending what he puts his opponent on, because it's a way of dealing a little bit with Zixel Prime. He just wants more stuff.
Spelkin now. But I like this actually. I appreciate it because look how much he is winning on board. This is insane. Like OldBoy would need exactly Zephyrus to really deal with this, right? Alutemu's just got more stuff, and although this has worked out okay for Alutemu, my question was, this kind of thing could have been set up earlier against OldBoy if he just played out the Alexstrasza. So, would the game have just been, like, I guess, won quicker? But
this is kind of what you described a minute ago as sort of what you envisaged happening anyway without having to go through all the hoops.
But there is a Zephyrus, and if, honestly, OldBoy can't really do much against this board, we're going to see Zephyrus, Bloodlust, Savage Roar, whatever, Wind Fury even, potentially, to win this game. But Unleash the Hounds and Crazed Netherwing is there, but again, the Kartuk is quite frustrating to deal with, and it's going to heal Alutemu for 6.
It really is, and he's going to have the Zephyrus where now, having done all this, like, even a Tyrion might be pretty good. It's usually kind of ropey because the Hunter deals with it so easily. But the Hunter's been on the back foot weirdly for a few turns now. Suddenly Tyrion might just be good enough.
I do like the heal on the Alexstrasza here. OldBoy doesn't have the luxury of trying to play a value game. I'm pretty sure he thinks he will lose because he's lost all his power, or a lot of his power cards. And that is, if you've not been joining us all weekend, an Aranasi Broodmother. That's the new artwork for it. Just in case you didn't know, it definitely is that card. We saw the heal come out for Alutemu as well. But yeah, Alutemu's got a ton of options here. Still got this Zephyrus to work. I'm not sure if there's a lethal in there somewhere. There might be with this unstable Fellball. Can he get through this with Coil?
Naught mana Zephyrus gives you Pyro, doesn't it? If you want it. Not quite there without having to spend a mana here.
On a quick count, it looks like if he plays both Rain of Fires, I think this is lethal with Savage Roar. Because the 2 Rain of Fires make up the 2 damage he was short, I believe.
Yeah, he's worked it out. I'm not adding it up, I just think he's worked it out.
I think this is lethal, I'm pretty sure.
He thought forever and then did a load of actions at once. That's usually a lethal.
Oh yeah, you can do it with Bloodlust as well because he has the mana. Yeah, I was checking Savage Roar in case he had to spend more mana on this, but Bloodlust is going to finish this game up. Alutemu takes game number 1, and honestly, I was worried for just a second there. I think There was just a point he could have gone for the Alex Trouser, but he had his time, and as I mentioned, it did turn out he wasn't too far away from actually having his Alex active as well, which is, again, a little bit tough to look out without Deck Tracker, but he takes win with a Warlock, and that is a good victory because that matchup can very easily go out of control, and the Hunter can take it in very quick fashion a lot of the time.
Yeah, this was also a straight mirror in the lineups that after the ban stage, winning one that's so pretty huge underdog, in my opinion, at least in the current meta, as big an underdog as you get. I think that's a massive win for Alutemu now. He's in such a great position because you'd expect him to win his Hunter versus the opposing Warlock when that comes up, if that comes up. It just puts him in a great spot right now. He's kind of almost 2-0 ahead the way that works out.
Yeah, it really does. And again, a lot of, or at least some of that did come down to the Kartuk defenders because of just the extra heal. Abyssal Summoner, fantastic in almost every other matchup, but against these raw aggro ones, the heal does help. And I'm just going to actually quickly glance at OldBoy's list, and that is one of the differences here. OldBoy is running the double Abyssal Summoner, and obviously 0 Kartuk defenders. Those two either, you either play one or the other. So maybe that's also a bit more of a problem as well, because I feel like Alutemu then has a slightly favoured matchup if he runs Hunter into Warlock. Looks like he's going to start off with this Rogue though, and honestly, as we discussed at the start, this is a list I just like a lot. He's playing the double Spy Mistress as well instead of the Prep that we saw in OldBoy's list, but overall I'm a huge fan of this Rogue list.
Me too. I struggle to play it, but every time I watch it, it looks incredibly powerful. Just so much versatility while simultaneously just occupying the board. You can make big things, you can control the board, and you can also just start plopping down little stuff that is irritating your opponent and doing damage constantly to them all the time. I guess that's what constantly means.
It looks like we are going to go into game number 2 with a Rogue Mirror. So very, very similar lists, but this is going to be maybe one of the games where we do get to see Galakrond come into play. I feel like Rogue Mirrors either are extremely explosive or then extremely value-based. I feel like there's no middle ground, really. Either the game ends quite suddenly, or we start seeing how many lackeys each player can generate throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, it starts off with, if you don't finish your turn in front, you've lost the game. We saw that with Muzzy last night. There was one turn where he just got in front and his opponent just could not come back from it. And that was like turn 2.
Right.
But that doesn't usually happen because both sides have plenty of removal and plenty of minions. And that leads to the, as you say, the value game where it can be quite hard to know who's actually in front until things start to resolve themselves much later on.
We do see here as well, as we go into turn number 2, that Alutemu's double dirty tricks might look bad, but I actually like it. I think having the dirty tricks available this early on stops some of those weird rogue games where you don't quite get hold of the draw, right? If you don't get hold of Tog or Galakrond, then you can run out of card draw and run out of resources relatively quickly in Rogue, and that's definitely something you don't want to do in the mirror match, because if your opponent does have that, as you mentioned, it means they're going to get ahead on board, and then the game spirals out of control quite quickly. And it is very likely that your opponent is going to cast a spell in the very near future. So I think these dirty tricks are going to help out Alutemu quite a lot.
Just look at what this Spy Mistress is doing, Raven. It's Questing Adventurer, prep out a Seal Fate would normally be some sort of play at least here, but all that would happen is the Questing would die to the Spy Mistress and a dagger, and you'd give your opponent 2 cards.
Yep. It's great, isn't it? The card is just insane. The more I see it, the more I like it, and I already liked it quite a lot. So we are going to see Seal Fate come down from OldBoy, get that Galakrond activation on 1, but Alutemu draws another 2 cards. He can go for dirty tricks again if he wants, and just keep this cycle going. It's huge.
Yeah, I wonder at which point he decides to attack with this. I think it's the just you don't, right? You just never attack with this until it's actually going to connect for 8 damage. If you feel you get 8 damage out of it, it's worth it.
Yeah, or even just if you get a trade, right? I think is absolutely fine. Because it is a 1-drop. If it trades into almost any other minion in the game, apart from, I guess, a lackey, it's done its job. And even just a denial of it sitting there, as you mentioned, last turn, well, OldBoy can't play questing because it just dies. And now, OldBoy, unless his hand is pretty crazy, Also, can't really play questing because it dies. So I think just leave it in stealth until you get something fantastic out of it is a pretty valid plan.
And something we have talked about a couple of times, but for those who haven't seen it, like when you're playing against this card, it's sometimes best just to put an offering out there and get it over with. Like, here's the card I'm going to let you get some value out of. Now I can move on with the rest of my game. Because if you're not careful, you end up just sitting with all your cards in your hand the whole game and letting the person who has the Spy Mistress get the massive control of the board. You have to offer up some sacrifice to it.
It works in a oddly similar fashion to a freezing trap, right? When I'm sure we've both cast or seen plenty of games where someone like aggressively plays around freezing trap and just like never attacks with a minion for like 6 turns, and you do know if you attacked, you could have replayed the minion and got an actual attack in by now, and it works in a similar vein to that.
I guess the modern version of that for people who have played Hearthstone recently is explosive trap. I know freezing trap is played Raven, but yeah, it seems to be the day of the exploding trap and everything has 2 health. But yeah, you have to offer something up. I don't know if this is going to be tempting enough. Just goes to show that you're associating the rogue, or I do anyway, with tempo, the hitting your opponent in the face turn after turn, and Alutemu is just chilling, just building up gradual advantage on the board.
100%, because what he does now is he has all of the options and the power plays. He has Galakrond that is now on stage 2, so he's going to draw 2 cards and make them cost 1. He has Flick if there's any emergency situations going on. And then, most importantly for me, he has Kronks, and I feel like Kronks with some form of Shadow Step is so often a game-winning play from Rogue in almost any matchup that Alutemu is probably just feeling extremely comfortable. There's no need to rush. He's ahead. He already has a lot of the cards he needs to progress the game, and a lot of the onus is on OldBoy to actually make something happen.
Yeah, and I know it's just a game of Hearthstone, and both players will know what you just described, but being the experienced player in this top 8 out of the 2 helps you do that. It helps you just go, I know that my game plan, I know I haven't got to rush, whereas if you're not careful, you can fall into the trap. If you haven't been in many top 8s of, oh no, I've got to get on with it, I'm falling behind, rather than just playing logically. And Alutemu has just got all that experience now to go, yeah, this is just right, I'm just going to sit here and wait.
Right. And what do you make of that turn there, Lorinda? Because you said about offering something up. This Hanar is just already dead, and it generated 8 secret for OldBoy. Obviously, it activated some things. He managed to clear off the Shield of Galakrond, but was this a good enough turn from OldBoy versus what he could have done?
I think if he's going to do this, he could have played Hanar a lot earlier and just got it over with that way and moved on with his life. If you're not going to get any value out of it, you've got to identify that much more quickly. For me, anyway.
Okay, well, he does have Never Surrender, which is a pretty frustrating secret to play through. As again, if he casts a spell, it's going to give all his minions extra health. Pretty awkward for some of those clears, but again, Alutemu just feels so far ahead. He does have these discovers. Fan of Knives, never too bad for some card draw, but maybe with the board he has, because he doesn't have access to Van Cleef at the moment or a Quest Adventurer, maybe Bamboozle's just good enough.
Yeah, I was actually leaning Bamboozle there as well. I was obviously going to trust Alutemu over you, but I was leaning the same way with the same reasoning that the board was getting pretty big. You don't play it in your main deck because of the questings, but as you haven't drawn them, hey, let's turn one of these things into something bigger. But then if your opponent's going to be spewing lackeys out, and so are you, and you can kill all their lackeys and they can't kill yours, it's a long game again. This might not be played for quite a long time, but it might kill 4 lackeys in one go when it is.
That is true. And again, one of the ways Rogue takes wins is by just building up a board of nothing and then having Kronks buff it, and then you die. So it's definitely something that has to be considered here, having some way to deal with some of these pesky boards.
Did end up leaving up a lackey there for Togwaggle to come down, which isn't always where you want to be, for sure. Sort of, anyone who coaches you in Rogue will tell you to kill all the lackeys going into turn 6 in the mirror. If you possibly can, but he couldn't find a way to get that done and achieve what he wanted for the turn.
Right. I think with Ambusher down, you think it's fine, because if there is a Tog, there has to be something very specific afterwards to kill off this Ambusher. And now, yes, OldBoy played Tog, but it's already dead. And then he's going to spend 3 mana next turn with that wand.
He's thinking about prepping out the wand now.
Okay.
But I think he wants to save it for the questing. I think that's the decision he's making. And the Shadow Step as well on the Tog.
Right, he can't prep out the wand though, right? Because it's reduced by 2.
Yeah.
We're definitely living in the old Rogan days here, Lorinda, if you're on about prepping out the wand. But he does go for the Shadow Step to defend that Togwaggle. So again, although Alutemu doesn't get the easy kill, he has forced a Shadow Step out. And honestly, Shadow Step in Tog, it's definitely not bad, but I don't think it's the highest priority target in this matchup.
No, I think that Alutemu here is a lot further in front than it might look. Obviously, the wand will change that. It's a massive, massive change. But just looking at the hand and looking at how set up he is, I think he's in a good spot.
And most importantly as well, he can't wand Lackey Tog either, because he doesn't have enough mana. So that means that Alutemu knows he doesn't have to necessarily deal with Tog once again this turn if the wand's played out. So it does limit some of the factors. And honestly, Lorinda, I think with Flick in hand and a Shadow Step, Alutemu's probably not even that scared of the wand anyway. Because if one comes out, your normal like fear factors are say, okay, I guess Galakrond, but also like a big Van Cleef turn, right? And if that's the case, well, Flick's already there to kill the Van Cleef.
Perfect thing to flick here, though, for OldBoy. Obviously, not removing ambushes from his own deck is a big deal. When you flick a Van Cleef or something like that, you do remove your own one as well. So OldBoy will be quite happy with how that flick turned out. And now I think it is time for Alutemu to show us that he is in front, because if he doesn't, that wand and that second Tog might start to become super relevant.
Yeah, I do like the look of Galakrond here, though. Just get it live, draw those cards, then suddenly the Shadow Step, Edwin Van Cleef, Kronk's becomes live again. And again, I will probably harp on about the power of Kronk's Shadow Step till the end of days, or at least the end of the rotation that it's in. Because it is just so powerful and so flexible as well. I think this is just the turn to say, okay, OldBoy, you can have the board for now, but I'm going to have Galakrond.
Yeah, I think so too. And I unfortunately agree with you entirely on the Shadow Step thing. It's the base level is it does 10 damage to your opponent, heals you for 10, or it does 5 for them and clears their board. You know, 2 Kronks is just ridiculous. 1 mana backstab.
Oof. Well, that Galakrond sucked. Literally made his draws worse on overall, but it does draw him more cards. So even though it wasn't anywhere near as powerful as Galakrond's can and could be, it's still drawing 2 cards, gaining the armor, and giving more fuel for this Van Cleef potentially.
It's got a lot of catching up to do next turn, though.
Oh well, that's a wand, potentially the best wand I have ever seen.
It's a pretty ridiculous wand. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to
Someone show me a better wand than that. That is probably just game-winning at this point.
Yeah, and...
You can go all in on this as well. Oh, okay. He can just go in, he could prep out Never Surrender if he really wanted to. He can play the Kronks to buff the board if he really wanted to. Finish off with Van Cleef. Absolutely insane.
How much do you want with the prep being just thrown in there? It's quite funny, actually. And I guess it goes back to the turn where he didn't clear up the Lackey and the Togwaggle. To some extent. Obviously the Galakrond's finished that off, but being able to get that wand has been a bigger deal than it could have been.
I actually think it wouldn't have made much of a difference, honestly, because he did play a wand the turn after the turn he got the wand, right? So if you say that the Lackey was killed, he makes a different play that turn and then just uses a Lackey and Tog the turn after and plays the one this turn anyway. So I don't think that made a massive impact. I do just want to point out, although I mentioned, play Krunks and buff the board, it's completely right to make the dragon, and because it's another minion that is probably not going to be flicked and not susceptible to it, and it's just a little bit wider, a little bit more of a varied board state as well. So I do actually like the dragon over just buffing his board to make it a bit stronger.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about how sometimes it's bad against Druid because they make some 2/2s on you. So this is a board of 2/2s, except they're 8/8s.
Yeah,
being fan of knives doesn't work.
Okay. Don't really blame him for that one. OldBoy's going to take game number 2. Alutemu just could not deal with the outcome of that wand into the Galakron. And like I said, that is probably just the best wand you could get, because it's literally hitting the most powerful cards one after the other. So a huge turn there. Unfortunate for Alutemu, but OldBoy did position himself to, like you said, get that Togwaggle down, get the wand, and he got rewarded for it.
Yeah, and that is Rogue Mirrors. It looks like it's going one way, and it's sometimes hard to tell who's in front. It did look like Alutemu was set up absolutely fine. But again, I said the first game was a big victory for Alutemu because he beat the Hunter. But winning mirror matches is always really big in Conquest when you have the same 3 on each side. It quite often comes down to that in game number 5.
Yeah, it does, and we'll see what the players are going to queue in next. I don't really have too many qualms there about how each player played the game. I think it looked okay. I will say maybe OldBoy was a little bit slow on dealing with the Spy Mistress, but overall, it's hard to judge how the game went when a wand gets played that is that powerful. It literally won him the game. So always hard to go over some small choices in the early game to affect that one. And it does look like Alutemu is going to lock in his Highlander Hunter for the next game.
Highlander Hunter, so it's going to be interesting to see what he is against, obviously. But this pretty heavy build again, so the Dragon Queen and the Grand Slam in there. Pretty tasty, I think. I think this is the build I like the most now. I've been learning from you throughout the weekend, and I've concluded that you have taught me that this is the right build.
Yeah, interestingly enough, what I would look at here is just mainly that Frizz Kindle Roost, which is where I personally am undecided on whether I like it or not. Again, the power obviously makes sense, especially if you play on curve. It means the draws and some of the bigger dragons come out sooner, and the sooner is the better for the hunter, who is normally the aggressor in most matchups. He's going to be going against OldBoy's Quest Warlock, and as I mentioned, unlike Alutemu, OldBoy is playing the Abyssal Summoner version, which, although can be more aggressive and can be awkward to deal with, against hunters specifically, it might just be a little bit worse.
Yeah, it makes your game plan a lot more clear, though. Make one of those and hit them with it. Yeah, the Kartuk version, you have to actually use your brain a bit more and sort of, when do I use this? What am I going to do? I'm going to put an Alex in behind one. This is just, I'm going to make your 9/9 and I'm going to hit you, and if you kill it, I'm going to lose. It's not quite that simple. Well, already. It never is.
OldBoy getting off to a pretty good start, honestly. The plot twist is there and available, but also the Sense Demons is very nice to help out the curve. But on the other side, Alutemu's got a pretty solid curve for himself. Going to take the turn off, I guess, on turn 2 and play Scavenger's Ingenuity, but the outcome of that and the potential reward, especially if he gets 6 saw, is quite powerful.
Playing the questing right away because the Sense Demons is making a bit of a mess of the calculations, I think. Plus, you want to get something on the board against this hunter. You've taught me it's quicker than it looks in the early game. There are actually things that need challenging.
It is, but I'm fairly sure there'll be a lot of players that query the no life tap on that turn. I know, I've watched enough Quest Warlock players to know that they life tap almost under any circumstance, and just say, well, why play a minion now when you can just life tap and play that minion later?
Yeah. Comes down to the Sense Demons is my guess, although my counting is a bit ropey. But he took a long time about it, so I'm assuming he was counting up the numbers. But we'll see. Double plot twist. Looking at his hand, not the play. He's in a decent spot. Then you look at Alutemu's hand and you think, well, maybe not so much. Because Alutemu's hand is also great.
It is. I know there was a tough call there, I think, for Alutemu as to whether he would coin out a 1-drop or not, because he does have a fairly straightforward curve without the coin. Did chose to hold back, and I think mainly just because of the 1-drops he had. The Blazing Battle Mage gets farmed by the Explorer if he coined it out, so it probably wouldn't be worthwhile. The Guardian Orc Merchant isn't really making enough of an impact to be played, so I do think I like holding the coin here.
Yeah, I can go with that. Just looking at OldBoy's hand more than anything here, he's actually seems to be struggling a little bit with working this out. We see a lot of the Warlock players just know exactly what they want to do on every single turn. But he's struggling even with, do I bump into this?
I think I like the bump overall, even though he doesn't have it. Mortal Coil draws are fantastic. The Rain of Fire gets the job done as well. And also, this Dwarven Sharpshooter just isn't a huge threat. If Alutemu hero powers down this Explorer now, and then goes face for one, OldBoy's probably pretty okay with that versus a minion being played against him instead.
Yeah, he may be a little bit less okay with this. But Alutemu is trying to work out whether there's a Dark Skies or not right now. That's what's making this turn a bit difficult. Don't really want to play the Zixor and get it Dark Skies after you trade into the 2-2. And because OldBoy seemed to struggle with the decision, I think Alutemu may be trying to get some sort of read as to what he thinks in that hand, because the turns have gone a bit weird so far.
They have. I do think Zixor is just fine anyway. If Dark Skies comes out, then Alutemu has some very powerful turn 4 plays anyway to make up after that. So I do think just Zixor, trade, and go is more than okay. When there's no Dark Skies and no way to kill Zixor, that's fine. I guess he might be a little bit worried about Nether Breath. But again, Nether Breath, when your opponent's on pretty much full health, is fine. Alutemu, though, going for this Battle Mage into hero power. This is a surprise for me, honestly. I think he could have been a little bit faster here.
He definitely could have been faster here, but he's put the investment in the future with a coin. He doesn't have most of those cards that he wants to coin out in his hand right now. But it will be interesting to see if that pays off for him when he finally uses the coin. You only get one go to use it. It has to do a lot. And maybe he felt it wasn't doing a lot here.
Yeah, I don't think he had to coin, though. I think Zixor was more than okay.
Oh, just Zixor, okay.
Yeah. Frizz Kindle Roost looks like the weapon of choice here for Alutemu. He doesn't die to the Netherwing response here, which is nice and I guess the selling point of the minion. Obviously, Dragonbane doesn't die either, but Kindle Roost, the earlier you get it down, the more reward you're going to get because the more dragons there'll be in your deck to gain a benefit.
Yeah, when trying to construct what a player is going or did last turn, I always look at how quickly they play the next one. He played that instantly. That was a big part of his calculations on the previous turn. He'd worked out this is the curve he wanted to go for the turn before when he didn't play Zixor.
There's a lot of options here. Honestly, I love watching this because it interests me greatly, especially after that earlier turn, how Alutemu is going to use these resources. Because on one hand, I'm looking at just Dragonbane coin hero power, just start pushing a ton of damage.
I knew that was the Raven play. Like, my brain goes, oh, I'm going to try and get some damage. Let's go Zixor and Stormhammer, and yeah, that's fine. But then I look and I go, there's a Raven play here, and that's just 7 him.
There's also the opportunity to just go Zixor Stormhammer, which then means there's Varanus into OldBoy's potential Abyssal Summoner. Or he could actually... Oh, no, you don't even need to do that. What he might do, actually, I'm just going through all these plays now. He can hold the coin, so he has Varanus, coin, Guardian Orc Merchant to beat the Abyssal Summoner next turn.
Yep.
Which is probably, now that I've gone through every possible play, the one I like the most. He can just hero power here.
Yeah, and I like that the most, the way you worded it, and also with the extra piece on the end that if you don't have to Varanus, you've got the Grand Slam on 9, which is huge against Warlock.
Right.
You know, you probably have to use the coin before that. If you don't, you're just going to win on turn 9. Here he goes with the payoff.
Okay. Rewarded. And he gets the swing of the weapon, which just makes this turn itself so powerful.
Oh my. And picks up that Dragon Queen Alexstrasza in the middle of all that as well.
Which is just playable next turn if he wants it. He can just play an 8/8 next turn and gain 2 1-mana dragons.
So this is showing that the starting point for processing what you want to do on a turn is thinking, what is my opponent doing next turn, and working back from there.
I wonder.
It's rare I say this, but I actually think I like the weapon on the 2-1 because it stops just a straight Nether Breath killing off the Varanus. It stops a few things actually. That we can see a Netherwing in hand as well, which with a coil would also help. Obviously, these are multiple cards at this point, but I do wonder if that swing to face was particularly necessary over removing 2 power from the board, because this Varanus is a problem in itself.
Yep, and I was interested in that one as well. Maybe he's not. Maybe he doesn't mind if he gets nethered. Like, there's usually going to be a clear here. Maybe he feels if that's removed from the hand and then you just play an Alexstrasza the next turn. Actually, if the nether's only doing 6 instead of 8, that's good, right?
That's true.
4 instead of 8, depending.
This is a very clean kill that OldBoy has here, though.
Yeah, this game's definitely still up in the air. Obviously, Alutemu is going to have an amazingly strong next 3 or 4 turns, but OldBoy has a handful of ways to deal with stuff, especially now.
And that's where my question lies with the not clearing the 2-1 is OldBoy has a ton of cards, right? So many of these different combinations or single cards make this clear on Varanus very easy with the help of the Abyssal Summoner. And I just wondered if like 3 damage to face was worth making your 7-6 much more dead, or likely to be dead, should I say. But you are right, this plot twist is going to be huge here for OldBoy. Life taps are good to go now, but Alutemu can just drop an 8-8 this turn if he really wants.
And again, it's what we've talked about all week, because there's been so much Hunter to talk about. There are not many decisions, but they are really hard. And actually, Frizz has just made this even harder because there's so many more combinations of things you can do now.
I like the Alexstrasza here, though. This gives him the free weapon swing, of course. I think no matter what, he plays a dragon this turn in one way or the other. Alexstrasza then allows him to potentially go Dragonbane, Dragon, Hero Power next turn, which is obviously a huge turn so early in the game. He's just going to go for this big old welt, though.
Are you normally looking to make sure you can hero power the turn you Dragonbane? You're not one of these people who like just throws it out there and hopes it doesn't die.
Only ever really on curve, or if you're so far ahead anyway that the extra minion is just an extra minion that's powerful enough to win the game. But generally, I think hero powering with it, especially on a likely empty board, is so powerful. You often just don't want to skip that.
It's how I used to play it, and I realised I was dying to people playing it on curve, and I'm thinking, maybe I'm just being a bit too... Like you're saying, you can play it on curve because it's just ignore it, yeah?
Exactly. It's a 3-5 on curve that has to die, and if it doesn't die, you're looking good to win the game.
Yeah.
Here, though, these live taps from OldBoy are going to start putting in the effort. Big heal from the Moag and Nether Breath combo puts OldBoy back up to 26, and now... we're finally going to see this Alexstrasza hit the board.
Yeah, and the fact he's on 26 is one of the stronger cases yet for that weapon having gone into the 2-1, not the face. 26, 29, who cares?
I bring life.
And now it's 12! Four 3-5s would get that done in 2 turns' time.
Yeah, it's a real thing because obviously Quest Warlock doesn't often have a board, right? They don't have a ton of minions, which means the Nagran Slam often, at least a few of them, end up going face because they're normally like 50-50s as to whether they go face or not. So although it's just a good card for building a board, it's also a very aggressive card in a lot of matchups.
And look at next turn. Let's say this goes Twisting Nether now. Dragonbane Hero Power Whelp hit you in the face again because Whelp's a dragon. With the Grand Slam to follow it up, that feels like it's very hard to deal with, especially when you don't know it's there.
I think actually OldBoy can't afford to twist in Nether this turn, so I quite like if this is Celadan into a Soulfire. I quite like it. This clears both and leaves him with a board. This is a nice turn, I think, from OldBoy here. The only thing he's missing this turn is heal, but he can't realistically do that anyway. He doesn't throw away the Zephyrus, which is huge, which means he can get healing touch next turn if he needs it.
But remember that Zigzor that didn't get played on turn 3?
Right.
It's actually going to be really handy now.
The problem is, would it have just been handier earlier? is the real point, right?
Yeah.
So how much damage do we have here?
It's 10.
I think Dragonbane hero power might be best to just see where the hero power goes.
I think
and then
he made the
reassess
decision
afterwards.
not to. He looked for a very long time before he played the Whelp and hovered over the Dragonbane. I think he made that decision before the Whelp. Because like you say, if that goes face, you just win the game.
Right. The problem here, or what I'm looking at from Alutemu's point of view, is he has so much damage with Zigzor into kill command for 5, Dragonbane hero power, he has Nagran Slam for next turn. Start chucking out the damage, right? Start using these cards. The longer he waits to do these things, the slower the game becomes, which gives OldBoy the higher chance to just get this job done. So, you see, he's going to go for double trades here. Taking the Moag does help. It means that these potential extra heals aren't going to do too much. The Aranasi Broodmother coming off the top, going to help OldBoy out.
A little. And you could tell that Alutemu didn't know what he was doing last turn because he nearly played the Dragonbane even at the end of the turn, having made the decision earlier in the turn not to do so.
And he's just got 2 mana, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, that's the big one. Yes. The Dragonbane is just coming to haunt him now. It's just going to go in full screen mode in a minute for the rest of the game.
Still, though, although we're talking a lot about Alutemu and all the options he had and didn't take, OldBoy does have to still dig himself out of this. He is on 11. He doesn't have Nether Breaths available to him. He does, though, have Zephyrus and a healing touch, which will help him quite a lot to try and stabilize here if he goes for it. Wait, he's not going. Okay. Gonna go for the taunt instead. Believe
so
in the
difficult.
Grand Slam. See, this is what's weird as well, right? Because now he doesn't have Zigzor to activate the kill command. So I feel like there's been some damage missed there as well. These last few turns from Alutemu have definitely been, I'll say, questionable at best.
Yeah, don't ask me what was right, but I'm pretty sure the last turn was wrong. Like you say, why was there 2 mana just chilling there, not used?
And although you might think, oh, just Dragonbane, go for it, Alutemu could just die next turn if he doesn't deal with this board, and that's the real fear. Warlock can pump out a ton of damage, even when you just don't hit the big burn spells off the hero power or Malygos. It still just has damage, and with the big minions on board, I think it's fair to just try and play just a little bit safer for now. This requires OldBoy to chuck out 20 damage, which is quite the ask.
Yeah, 18, easy, 20, much harder. So that was the final decision. 25 is one of the key numbers. Because it's 9 plus 9 plus 6 is 24, which is one of the ways it can work out. So it's a safe number.
I wonder.
And the 20 after being hit is obviously still a safe number above 18. The Dragonbane that never got played. Ever.
Yeah, I am confident that Alutemu will probably go back and watch this match and not be too happy with how he sequenced some of these turns. But he still has OldBoy under a ton of pressure, and OldBoy still has to dig himself out of this one. Zephyrus into Healing Touch can help. I think that's what he'll get offered almost no matter when he plays it, as long as he has the mana to cast it this turn.
That's where he goes to go. I'm not sure
Will it give him Nova? Oh! Well, he didn't want that, did he? And that is just going to be game.
Well,
didn't expect that, Lorinda. That was a weird ending with that Zephyrus, but Alutemu does take the victory. And even though, as we mentioned, there are a few points of discussion over the course of that Hunter play from Alutemu, he did get the job done, and a ton of pressure on OldBoy there. But OldBoy just didn't quite get that Zephyrus to go his way and just couldn't quite stabilize for long enough. And I think that's because we saw some of those earlier Nether Breaths, right? It's almost a victory for Hunter. If Nether Breath happens when they're at 27, 26, first few turns of the game, because that means, okay, big chunk of the healing gone, let's focus on chucking out more damage.
Yeah, and I think that's why he didn't mind with that weapon swing to the face instead of the 2-1 too much, because if I get Nether Breathed, there's one less Nether Breath. Like, right. Sounds obvious when you word it that way, but I think that's why he didn't mind. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I think he felt it wasn't too bad. And I think over the course, the turn we didn't like, the hardest turns in Hearthstone are when you know you're probably going to win and you want to do it the most efficient way. Like it's you're trying not to punt and you end up getting caught in between two plans. They are difficult turns.
Yep, I do think even from the rope early, Alutemu is not looking the cleanest we've ever seen him here, but he is ahead and he does have this Rogue now to take a win with. And Rogue, the best performing deck of the tournament so far, so I'm sure he can get the job done. OldBoy, again, wasn't looking too great, especially towards the end of that game. I think he had options to do something a little bit better, and I think he wanted Holy Nova with the help of that Moag, but I don't really think Zephyrus cares about Moag on board, and I think it was much safer for him to go for a healing touch in some way or another, to work in whether it was that turn or the turn previous, just to guarantee a little bit more wiggle room with that 8 extra healing.
So gonna get on with the rest of it now, though. And OldBoy, because of all that, still has to get the wins with his Hunter and his Warlock. And we're up against what apparently, and the stats don't lie very often, is the best class in Hearthstone, or at least in this format.
Yeah, and Hunter versus Rogue is a really tricky one, I think, for Hunter. Of course, they're still going to try and do the same thing, just try and curve out, put as much pressure on as possible. But Rogue has the tools to slow them down enough. This evasive Feywing is actually a bit of a pain, unless there is a Spy Mistress early in the game for Rogue. But outside of that, a lot of the tools that Hunter has, Rogue almost just has the answers to anyway. It's a pretty tough matchup, I think.
Yeah, Alutemu seems to be sort of not processing on 100% today, so playing Rogue might make it awkward if he's just having one of those days where you can't quite make everything work, but he should still be fine, obviously, play of his quality. This opening hand, though, already making him have to think pretty hard, because Hanar and a secret is always a tempting keep, but it's quite slow if you do go for it. The real question is, do you think you can play Hanar on 2 and have it not die?
Right, and I'm not even sure if that's the plan in general anyway, or the expectation, especially post-nerf, for it not to die. But there aren't tons of curves exactly that kill Hanar if it is played on 2. I'm just double checking Alutemu's rogue list, and I did wonder whether he was going to go for a mulligan to try and get Spy Mistress instead, but he did stick with this, so we'll see how it pays off for him here.
It may pay off for him absolutely massively, because the Hanar looks from where we are like it could survive, or the Corrosive Breath weapon does take care of it over 2 turns. And if he gets Ambush Stunner off the turn after, big things could happen for him.
Very interesting there, even from OldBoy already. I think there was a... Something I've started doing is coining out Felmore no matter what the rest of your hand looks like. I think it is just strong enough to do. Even if you follow up his hero power, I do appreciate though that there are more options now for OldBoy if he doesn't do that plan, and he can just curve out now with the Felmore and the Explorer. The only problem is Felmore comes out and attacks a whole turn later than it would have if he coined it out. And that one turn is actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is, but also maybe he doesn't mind if there are more minions out there. You obviously want to connect phase in the early game, but if your opponent's got a wider board, you can get a 5/4 that kills a thing, especially if it's a spy mistress or something. You don't mind too much. Coining into these 4 drops and 5 drops, not these 2 4 drops in particular, but we saw Alutemu really valued the coin highly when playing Hunter a minute ago.
Yeah, now this is going to start getting a little bit tricky here for OldBoy, because we can see, of course, this secret is ambush. It's for OldBoy's knowledge, that first secret is dirty tricks or ambush. Now never surrender means that OldBoy's going to have to work out how he actually manages to deal with this Hanar, and even if he can, because if he goes Primordial Explorer, well, it's dead. If Alutemu wants it to be, because he gains his own poisonous minion. If he goes Desert Spear, that is extremely slow. Same with Bone Wraith. The options just aren't that good.
Yeah, he might not even be keen on using coin in case he gives his opponent 2 cards now, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So this mulligan decision from Alutemu so far looking to be a really, really good one. Or at least one that's working out for him.
The problem here as well is he's still not gained the knowledge of what this rogue secret is, never mind the Paladin one. So it could still go wrongly for him next turn as well.
Yeah, when secrets start going against you, you can sometimes get yourself in a real mess of a situation. Not very often, but the times it does go wrong, it seems to go very wrong. And this snake trap even's going to be pretty handy. Just what Rogue needs, in fact, just going wide.
Yeah, and although this is we don't get to see the Discover quite yet, I think we do have the Spectator bug where the game is going to freeze. We're going to work on fixing that for you guys. It's a shame, because I would have liked to have seen the secrets, and maybe we can hover over them soon. But most importantly, this is just one of those weird games where Rogue has just kind of got ahead early. The Felmore could help with that, of course, depending on where the attack goes. But it's definitely not got off to the best start, really, for OldBoy, has it?
No, and it may feel like Alutemu is not getting anywhere, because sometimes the secrets just aren't very good, but I think he's got a really good selection going here. And, getting the secrets, look at his next couple of turns. Shield of Galakron is just beautiful to set up a turn 7 Togwaggle. And turn 6, he's got so many options after the secrets have resolved, he should be fine there as well. And he's just going to protect Hanar. It's like, okay, I've had my fun.
Yeah, the fact he's willing to take the damage just shows how far ahead he thinks he is. He's going to take 5 from the Felmore, but look at what he has. This is going to be... he'll actually activate Get Down, right? So he won't even take the 5. Noble Sacrifice is going to soak it for him, but most importantly, he can go Hanar and start doing other stuff as well, or he can go for the Shield of Galakron, but I think now... we're just going to get a good idea of how Alutemu feels about this Felmore, because he could go Hanar and then just use Blackjack Stunner to just bounce the Felmore away, and it almost just destroys the card.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not even realistic to replay it in even the remote future for OldBoy, to pay 3 mana for this that then comes out 2 turns after the fact. I think it's going to be a good target for the stun.
Yeah, it's not coming back if it gets stunned. I don't think this one. It's why would you ever replay it? Like you say, it's just going to be so slow. And if it ever comes back, it's probably coming back onto a board of 6 minions or something. And who cares anyway? 6 small minions, depending what the minions are, of course. Yeah,
oh wow, he could even Shadow Step the Blackjack now and just take total board control with some secrets.
Yep. And that's the key to Hanar, is to get some value out of your secrets while still progressing the game. It's no use if you just play a silly secret, your opponent does something, triggers a secret, and you both end up back where you were. You've got to be progressing. The Snakes did a good job of that, for instance.
Is it weird that I like Pressure Plate here?
No, because it's a Hunter card. But no, it's actually a really good card. There's very few cards against Hunter. Like, Hunter only has 1 or 2 minions in play at a time, so just randomly destroying your opponent's Seamat because it's the only minion seems really good.
Well, for me, it's Hunter doesn't really play tons of spells, but the fact that Alutemu knows he still has coin means that, okay, well, if he wants to coin out any of the powerful plays, then it could potentially proc the pressure plate, and also it means OldBoy has to not only consider pressure plate, but freezing trap, snake trap, misdirection, all of the hunter secrets, even snipe. That could be a frustration here. So I think not only is pressure plate okay because of the coin, just the fear and the sort of mental gymnastics the hunter secrets will do or cause OldBoy to consider is well worth it. And we do see the stone cold play of the bouncing these 2 minions back to OldBoy's hand, which makes them, at least for the Felmore for me, unplayable for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Felmore will not be seen again unless something incredible happens in this game. One thing that was interesting there is he didn't have to replay the pressure plate, but because he returned both minions, it became a lot better. Because you don't really want to pressure plate a 5-2 when you can just take it down yourself the old-fashioned way.
OldBoy... Sorry, go on.
No, everything on the board is generated by secrets, is where I was going. Like, this Hana is just generating this board turn after turn.
And there's still secrets to try and work out for OldBoy here. He can test freezing trap as well. Not that he has any, rush minions right now anyway, but he can get a very easy test for that because he has this this locust. But the problem is, if he attacks, well, one, there's a bamboozle, which is pretty nice, but also, yeah, okay. So now he knows it's not snakes. He can test for freezing pretty easily too. But look at this, never surrender. Oh.
That's been there for so long and still got a
It's all uneven.
He's endured enough and he gives up his tournament, not just the game, with that concede. And Alutemu moves into the semi-finals. And on balance, I think just about got there. I think he might need to tidy it up later in the day.
Yeah. I'm struggling not to just laugh because that was just a funny game of Hearthstone. Alutemu, it must have been not very fun for OldBoy, of course. He just didn't let him play the game. And just these secrets just coming out turn after turn, causing absolute havoc. You saw then the sequence of secrets literally just made OldBoy burn cards and achieve nothing, which caused him to concede. So rough game, rough series there for OldBoy. He does top 8 though, which is a very impressive performance overall, but Alutemu does move forward in semi-finals. And honestly, Lorinda, I do have to agree with you, even though I'm a huge fan of Alutemu. I think looking at who his opponents could be, either Lee or Tice, he's going to have to take this time he's got now to just, refresh himself maybe calm down. He is in a high-pressure scenario. Winning a Masters tour is a big deal, even for a Grandmaster, of course. But I do think he has to just tighten these things up because Lee or Tice, whoever wins that, are not going to be pushovers.
Agree. He will have the saving grace that last game swung just on his mulligan decision. It won him the game there and then. And it was a decision that was very difficult. You don't have to keep those 2 cards, particularly against Hunter. The Hunter just plays a mage on turn 1. The whole thing just caves in on itself and you don't end up with what happens next. So his choice...
Or a coin Felmore, Lorinda.
Or a coin Felmore, yeah. Which
it could have happened. Yep, could have, but it didn't. But anyway, Alutemu does move forward into the semi-finals, and we've got tons more Hearthstone coming right up. Quarterfinal 2 is coming soon. We're just going to go to a break while we set it up and get you some new casters to take you through that one. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.